আপনারা দেখছেন টকিং পয়েন্ট।
সৌজন্যে মাহবুব এন্ড কো অ্যাকাউন্টেন্টস।
ঠিক আছে, welcome back. Before we went on the break, we were talking to our guest Anwar Chowdhury about his role in the Foreign Office, Foreign and Commonwealth Office, FCO.
Yes.
And his area of interest was, or is, probably was, policy for radical change in government governance. What's that?
Yes, I think you must have found a very old CV from where
Yes.
you were. I remember
that?
that was around when I used to work in the Cabinet Office.
Yeah.
And one of my interests is how do we make government better? How do we, as civil servants,
Right.
Public officials, diplomats, how can we serve the public radically better?
Yeah.
So
It's a continuous process, isn't it?
it's a continuous process, but also you can be ambitious. You can say that if customer satisfaction levels from
Yeah.
a private company or private
Yeah.
enterprise
Right.
is so high, why shouldn't government service be able to achieve the same levels? So I was at that moment looking. I was in fact studying a PhD at the time on radical business process changes. So taking at that time, during the 80s and 90s, businesses were being radically re-engineered to produce new processes that serves the customer better, but also makes better profits.
Yeah.
And we were looking at, can we adopt the same thing in government? Can we change processes, cultures, mindsets, so that government can radically better serve the public? So that was an area of interest, and that's why I worked in the Cabinet Office as Director for e-government and modernising government.
Great. We live in this country and we have a large population of Bangladeshi
Yes.
origin, see. And I always ask my guests, do you consider yourself British or Bangladeshi or British hyphen Bangladeshi? See? My question to you is the same. How
Right.
do you consider yourself? See? And
I think it's a very, very good and pertinent question. It's kind of a question of our time, because as I travel around the UK, I see this issue come up in all sorts of ways. But let me first answer your question. I see myself as British of Bangladeshi heritage, okay, or British Bangladeshi if you want to
Yes.
have two nationalities attached. And I see myself as no different to, say, perhaps the Italian American
right.
or the Irish American, who has strong linkage.
Or American Irish.
Or American Irish. Thank you. Who has strong attachments, feelings towards the country of heritage, but nevertheless very clear about who he is. Now, I am very clear that we are British people. This is our country. And I've said this on many, many occasions, and I always reinforce it. I think that's vital that we see this as our country. Now, the reason why I think this issue is so important is if you are not clear about who you are,
True.
if you're not clear about where you belong, if you're not clear about what is it that you want from your country, from yourself, from your family, from your community, then it becomes a pretty confusing and not very productive
True.
kind of state of being. And you end up in all sorts of kind of identity associated complications.
And you have to set your goals against that background, isn't
Yes,
it?
and you've hit it on the head. If you keep on seeing yourself as a Bangladeshi living in Britain, an immigrant living in Britain,
Yeah.
you will never aspire to be a minister in this country or to lead IBM here or anything particularly. And that mindset, I think we've done tremendous work to get rid of it. And although there's still some way to go, I see that identity confusion at various levels, even amongst our youngest, which is really worrying. These are third generation, second, third generation, some fourth generation British people of Bangladeshi heritage, still not quite sure as to who they are and where they belong. This is
What do you think of this? I mean, we have a sizable population of Bangladeshis. Even in this, where we are sitting, in East London,
Yes.
this is probably the largest
it
community.
is, yes, famously.
Largest community.
Yes,
And
yes.
here we have 6 television channels,
Yes.
10, 15 periodicals,
Yes, yes,
well known.
yes, yes.
And we are talking about the future of
Yes.
Bangladesh.
Well, let me tell you, I mean, I'm hugely optimistic about the British Bangladeshi community. I'm a great fan of it. I've been kind of celebrating it and sort of jointly with the community. But I also talk about it when I'm in odd places. I think I was in Korea, in South Korea once, talking about the British Bangladeshi community, or in New York. In my last job, it used to take me everywhere, and I see something that I think is worthwhile kind of pointing out. And it's this: the British Bangladeshi community today, in 2013, is a community of success. When I went out to Dhaka in 2004, I got the sense that we were still kind of treating ourselves as a victim community. We kept on talking ourselves down in terms of the problems we have, either socially or in terms of wealth or in terms of education.
Yeah.
There was something.
Blaming others.
Blaming others, that is classic victim mentality, to blame others. Even when it is others' fault, a successful individual doesn't mention that,
Yeah.
even though that is true. And so I saw that, and that used to sort of worry me. But now I look at our community, and when I look at the facts about our community, and as I say, because I get such a privileged view, just a few weeks back I was in North Wales with the British Bangladeshi community in Edinburgh a week back. I get this really unique view of our community, this 500,000, I know it's more than 500,000 people in Britain. And what I see is a complete transformation from this kind of loose victimhood to a successful community, and successful in areas that you can measure. When you look at education now, I mention on purpose that I can't now find families without all the children being graduates. Do you remember the time when you could count the number of graduates in Bangladeshi families? Now it's difficult to find one where all of them are not graduates. And I challenged a group of people the other day in an audience, and they all said absolutely all our kids are graduates. That's one.
Is it also because now we have more universities?
It's partly that, but remember our degrees are regulated.
Yeah.
Okay, so even even if you're not going to a Russell Group university, those degrees are regulated by a standard.
Yes.
Okay, but so that's education. And a number of times I've given out awards to kids with 10 A stars in GCSEs. A couple of years back I was in Leeds, a family, 3 girls, all 3 at Oxford, graduates. In the same time I met people with PhDs. There's a small community near Leeds in Keighley. In North Wales just the other day, hundreds of graduates. And so that success continues. And it really inspires me to see this transformation. The other transformation is wealth. Bangladeshis are not a poor community. If you look at what people own and what they do, what is it, 12, 13,000 restaurants. We celebrate it famously, famous shows like the British Curry Awards, great show they do, that is attended and watched all over the world. So we have 14,000 people who own restaurants, and they're by definition millionaires. They have to be. Their own restaurants.
Even the value of the property.
Value of property.
Never mind the turnover.
Yeah. Then you have, never mind the turnover. Then you have people who owns 3, 4 houses. I know so many of those. They're millionaires. There's lots of homeowners. Then you look at people who are doctors, who are engineers, who are in government, professionals, and they're, our doctors are no longer just junior doctors. They're top consultants. They're like deans. And if you look at the wealth that is in the Bangladeshi community, you see a community of success. So it's vitally important, your question, your very important question, that we see ourselves as British people, mainstream ambitions for a mainstream community.
Right.
That we don't tie ourselves down unnecessarily. We are hugely innovative. We can achieve so much if we free ourselves from unnecessary constraints.
The burdens of cultural, or say, what I call is cultural bondage, you see. We have to...
Cultural bondage, yes. Unnecessary ghettos
Yes, we have to get out. Sometimes I know, smilingly say that there is a world beyond Aldgate East, see.
Yes, but I rather like Aldgate. I like to come back to Brick Lane still, you know.
No, we have to, as we were talking about this, the Boishakhi Melas, I mean,
Yes.
we have to visualize and market it in a better way, like Brick Lane Mela rather than, because Brick Lane is internationally famous. I see there are films and books about that.
Yes, sounds like a very good idea.
Yes.
I'm sure people who arrange it would be very interested.
Yes,
yes, and it's a huge mela now. And
it's a huge opportunity to communicate to people,
Yes.
to emphasize on them our values and accept their values.
I look at Boishakhi Mela, I look at Noka Bais,
Yes.
I look at British Curry Awards.
True.
These are successful things that British Bangladeshis have led and are now successful at a national stage. And I look at the wealth, just the other day, you just reminded me, we have people who are famous, for being wealthy in the British Bangladesh. My good friend Iqbal is famous for being one of the top 100 richest people in this country, and we're very proud of him. But there are so many millionaires. Just the other day, in Ascot, I was invited. I was at a function, and somebody took me to their house.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's house must have been worth. I won't embarrass him by naming him, but his house must be worth about 5-6 million. Just the house. God knows what he's worth. British Bangladeshi. His son is a consultant in Microsoft. And I see success like that, and I feel really enthused because, and it's probably because I get to see it, and I'm in a unique position to see it because I get invited to these things. That fills me with hope and enthusiasm for this community.
Yeah, but these are the shining stars. Some people who might say that, well, these are exceptions rather than the rule.
No, that's my point. That's my point. 5, 6 years, 10 years back, people who had degrees were the exceptions, but now it's the rule.
Yeah.
Okay, I think in terms of wealth, people who own houses, restaurants that are having million or be sort of defined as a millionaire will not be an exception in the British Bangladeshi community by any means. I can name you 50, just from where I know. So these are not exceptions. Even I remember when I became the first non-white High Commissioner in this country, it was an exception. I'm no longer an exception. The next guy is also British Bangladeshi, and that's great, and that's where we should be going. We should not be.
The ice has been broken.
The ice is broken,
The
and we
door
should not,
has been dented.
Yeah, and I think now is the time not to be looking at the first of something.
Yes.
I'm the first this, you are the first that. I think that time is gone. Now we should be looking at, our community should be aspiring to be the best, that this chap is the best diplomat, is the best minister, is the best chief executive of an IT company. I think that's mainstream thinking. And I think that time is probably upon us now.
Not very far.
Well, no, I think it's now. It has to be now.
So if we, in the language terminology, if we say that this is present perfect.
Present perfect.
And we hope for future continuous and perfect both.
Yes. I'm learning Spanish at the moment, so these are painful grammar lessons that you are reminding me of.
Shouldn't we be learning Chinese? I think our very very beloved Mayor Boris Johnson was suggesting that we should learn Chinese.
Yes, well, I'm sure he's right. It does absolutely no harm
to learn a language.
To know somebody's language. It immediately connects you. You understand people better, even if you don't need it. And we have a problem of luxury in England, and perhaps the Americans too, in that English being so deeply kind of spread as it is across the world, we can get a little bit lazy. It's an issue that we are even facing up in the Foreign Office. We can get a little bit lazy thinking that other languages aren't important. They're vitally important. Chinese has to be given, it's the second largest economy in the world.
The importance that it deserves now.
Yes. Well, it's the second largest economy in the world, soon to be the largest economy in the world. We're a trading nation. We will trade better with China if we understand that language and can communicate in that language. It gives you tremendous powers of influence and connection. My little Bengali, I didn't know much Bengali when I went to Bangladesh. I didn't know much now. But even that little, I know what it brought me.
That helps.
Yes, that connection.
It builds the bridge.
It does. It immediately says, this guy understands me.
Yes. On this point of building the bridge, we take a break and we come back to talk more about the Bangladeshi community in this country and elsewhere. Thank you very much.
আপনারা দেখছেন টকিং পয়েন্ট।
সৌজন্যে মাহবুব অ্যান্ড কো অ্যাকাউন্টেন্টস।